Software quality isn't just about testing. It's about building the right culture, mindset, and habits from day one.
In this episode, we sit down with Swapnali Bhansali, an expert in software quality and engineering excellence, to discuss what quality really means and why it's a whole of team responsibility.
We explore the hidden cost of bad software quality, how different teams can work together to bake quality into the process, and what it's like navigating international career moves in tech.
If you're an engineer looking to improve your craft, or a leader thinking about how to build better teams, this episode is full of fantastic insights. Let's get into it, James.
Welcome back. This week we are talking to Swapnali. Swapnali is someone I've known for a few years now, and she's definitely somebody I think that a lot of people can learn from. She started her career in India, but now working in London, and she's going to tell us a bit more about that. Welcome to the podcast, Swapnali.
Thank you very much. Thanks, James, and thank you, Matt.
Swapnali, do you want to start by just maybe giving us a quick summary of your experience from when you started, early days to now? I'm sure we're going to cover a lot of that through the episode, but just so people know a little bit about who you are and where you come from.
Yes. So I started my career with Yahoo as a campus recruit, grew there at a lead position, then moved here to UK. And it was a difficult decision to move here with leaving behind everything. But here I am working as a software test manager for Global Relay at the moment.
You started as a campus recruit in Yahoo in India. You were there for 6 years. You moved up from an individual contributor to a lead, where you had some people responsibility. Then you moved to the UK and you took what seems to be on paper as more of like a mid-level test or automation engineer role. I think I understand why this might have been the case, but was that a conscious move, or was that something that you had to do when you moved to London to find a role?
Yeah, it was not a conscious move at all. It was just because my CV was not shortlisted for lead roles. My CV was only shortlisted for mid-level roles. I think everybody who comes from a different country probably goes through this challenge where they are a lead or they are at a better position before, and now because they are moving to a different country and they don't have the experience from that country, they are not given the opportunity to be in the same role. So no, it was not a conscious decision. It was just what came my way. I took it.
So one of the themes of the podcast is boundary conditions and how people make those transitions between one role and the next. And so I'm fascinated by this, and I'm just wondering what did you learn from that, and did it make you stronger? What did you take away from that process?
It definitely made me stronger. I think it also told me that okay, if you're at one position, it doesn't mean you're going to stay there. The circumstances can change, and you will have to change the way you work, the way you act. And just as a person, right, just as a human, it has made me stronger because I could take that and still contribute to my current work better. At the same time, because my mind was already set to work as a lead, even though I was officially, my title was a mid-level estate, I was actually working as a lead where you are doing not people management perspective, but from a technical lead perspective where you're thinking about the whole system, you're thinking about how it's going to impact something, rather than as a mid-level estate who is just like given some task and they are actually just doing that task. So yeah, lots of learnings in terms of career, in terms of learning in the new country, how to work, how to talk to people. I think even coming here, even the accent, right? It was difficult in the beginning to understand what people are trying to talk, because people here are from different countries, like the European countries, or even accent of the Welsh accent and the Scottish accent and the normal English accent is what I understood back then. So I think my first year, I would say, was more about understanding UK as a country and how to work in the UK, uh, alongside learning the technical aspects of my job.
I have some sympathy for that, because I wasn't, when I came to the UK from Australia, and James probably has the same experience or similar experience. I know it won't be anywhere near as in depth, but I expected everyone just to understand me because English is my first language. I'm a native English language speaker, and presumably everyone in the UK who's born here is a native English speaker. But I had all sorts of trouble speaking with people, but based on aphorisms. Aphorisms are the things that really confused people. I would use these Australian terms of phrase that were in English, but people would just go, "What?" Right? They just because they'd never heard it. So I can understand and then combining that with maybe English not being your first language, I can imagine how challenging that would be.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. But I think I have, again, last 10 years I'm here. I have learned a lot, and I have come over that challenge. Now I can converse with anybody and everybody. So I think that's a big learning.
Even Australians.
Yeah. Swapnali, you've been through that transition. You've grown as an engineer in India and done it all again here in the UK. Now you're a manager, essentially a senior manager responsible for quite a few people and a lot of hiring. Has that changed your perspective of when you look at a profile that is say someone who doesn't have any or limited experience here in the UK, when you look at them, and like, how does that change how you look at them? Do you think there's value in having to take a step back when you move overseas? Do you think that's warranted?
I think there are two things here, right? How I see it as a manager who is recruiting for, say, my team, I wouldn't make that decision just based on the CV. I would make that decision whether that person is actually qualified or not after my first interview or after my first talk with them. Because just not selecting the CV is, I don't think it's fair. Especially based on my own experience, I'm going to say try to arrange an interview for them for a lead role. Again, whether they clear it, they don't clear it, they can move down. That's an after question. But even to select for the first round, I think I would not make that call if it was me.
How do you go? How do you go about making that distinction? It's an interesting one because I mean I've hired a lot of people over the years as well. I mean James, like I've been on one side of the table, James has been on the other side of the table. I'm curious as to how you look at a CV. What are you looking for in a CV that is not there that you can use then to make that decision about whether to give a person a call and say come in and have a chat? How do you get that
For a
extra
lead
information?
role, for a
Yeah.
lead role, I think it's just the experience that the person has put in, right? The person can, even though the person says a lead experience, you actually check their projects, what they have worked on, if they have added that information. You check what tools they have listed down, and just not in the tools section, right? In the actual project section, you read out, okay, they have used this tool to do this. For example, JMeter, they've used JMeter where they have done performance testing and then the performance is improved by this percent, or they found some bottlenecks and that was resolved. So there are some lines which can give you that insider information. Okay, this person actually knows about it and this person doesn't know about it. So I don't know if that
seems
answers your
like
question.
Yeah. So you treat all CVs the same. It's
I
a
treat
matter
all the
of,
CVs the same.
yeah. So you don't necessarily jump to that conclusion that they need to, do their time before they're eligible for becoming a manager or a senior person within the UK.
Not from the CV now.
Just a quick question. I'm interested in your career progression. Let's go back to India briefly. When you made that transition from IC up to management, what did that look like? How did that happen?
That's not probably the answer you're looking for, but I personally love to see the impact of my work directly. So when I'm an IC or when I am individual contributor, but at a higher level, maybe a principal engineer, for example, right? When I'm working as a principal engineer, very much hands-on, I can see straight away, okay, this has changed. I have improved this. I have created this framework, and this is how it has helped the team. So you can see it straight away. But as a management, when you are into management, that is not very straightforward impact. That's an indirect impact that you're having on your team. I was interested in the principal roles, and that's when I went for principal roles before joining as a manager. Unfortunately, there are not many principal roles for estates or for QAs. There are not many QA architects or people who can lead in the IC cycle, individual contributors path for estates. So that was the reason that if I have to stay employed and I have to still continue growing, I have to move to management. But again, now if I look back, I think that's again one of the best decisions I have done. I have learned a lot. Back then, I did feel that, okay, management, the job is not, you can't see how you're impacting. But being in the role for 2 years, doing the simple process changes, doing managing people, getting them promoted or making sure that they get promoted, I think all of that is definitely definitely the impact that you have had on the team, on the product, on the processes itself. So my assumption was wrong, I should say. And even though the transition happened because of no opportunities available in the IC path, I'm still glad that I took this transition.
I think this is a very, very important point for people on the boundary of on the transition from IC to management and leadership. And we in fact, we've spoken about this exact thing a couple of times in the previous episodes. And so I think I'm interested in your thoughts, but one of the lessons that I encourage people making that transition to learn or to appreciate is that you have to go, the transition from IC to management, you have to work out a way, you have to hack yourself so that you work out how to get your creative nourishment instead of by direct application of your skills, by indirect application of your skills. Okay. And I call this the multiplier effect. I stole a word from an ex-colleague of mine who used the word multiplier a lot. When you become a manager, you become a multiplier rather than an individual contributor. And what he meant by that, and what I've stolen his term, is that you have to work out how to multiply the capabilities of the people around you rather than just execute your own capabilities. And you turn up on day one as a manager and you've lost that direct effect, the impact of direct effect. And so many people get stuck there because they go, oh, I'm not doing anything, or I'm not having any impact. And so knowing before this happens that is a property of that early stage of management, that your impact now becomes indirect rather than direct, it's a crucial lesson to learn. And going into that, knowing it in advance is very helpful.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. It's the imposter syndrome, at least in the beginning of the career, that you feel, right? When you're not from a management background and now you're suddenly inserted as a manager.
Yep.
Everything is working fine. All the teams are fine. You still have to go there, make that impact. And then first few months, you're trying to learn about people. You're trying to learn about the product. You're trying to learn about the processes. And you just feel lost. Like, okay, what am I doing? Why am I here? Am I even having that impact on the team, as you said, right?
And
as you start looking at things, as you get used to even the jargons which are used in the company, right? It took me about 4 months just to get myself in the conversations with people because I wasn't sure what they're talking about.
And the imposter syndrome is a fantastic topic. I don't know if whether we talk about that now or later, but I say this to people a lot when they're making that transition. You're never going to be as bad at management as you are on day one. Right? That's the day when you're going to day when you're going to be the worst you ever are, right? Because at least
Absolutely.
on day two, you know what you did on day one, did work or didn't work, and you know not to do the things that didn't work and double down on the things that did work. But that's also a thing that once you know that, you can go, oh, okay, I can only get better from here.
Absolutely.
So Swapnali, you're a successful manager now. You've come from being an individual contributor. You're in a successful career now. I'd love to hear. We've obviously heard a little bit about your challenge of moving countries, but I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the challenges you face and perhaps some of the advice for aspiring engineers out there that must be listening to.
Yeah, I think we talked about the India moving from India challenge. The next one I think was after my daughter was born. So I was working with lastminute.com. Then I went on a maternity break. I took a break for 2 years because that I wanted to give that time to my daughter. So after 2 years, when I actually started looking for jobs, first thing is, yes, still not selected for a lead role or for a senior role. I ended up getting a mid-level role again. So this is my second time coming back to a junior-ish role. And this time it was a bit more difficult because first time I was prepared. Second time I was kind of not so prepared, because I was like, okay, I have the experience now and I have been here, I have the UK experience. And most of the females, I think, go through this challenge where after their maternity breaks, they get that career gap and people just think they have basically lost all the information they had before they had a baby, which is absolutely wrong. Um, the advice to all the females who are going through, especially this transition where they are going through, I would say, just don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay. It's even if you start at a low level, because that's how the CVs are filtered. You Because you've already been a lead, it won't be very hard to pick that up again. You will still make it. Probably there will be a delay, and just keep it in mind that there is going to be a bit of delay getting back to your career progression the way it was before. Um, for me, yes, just be persistent. Be sorry, not just be patient is what my advice would be. I know it's not very encouraging or motivating, but that's just
Swapnali, what
based on my
about
personal experience.
advice perhaps to hiring managers? Because you're a hiring manager now, you've been through that situation before. So you see a CV of someone with a 2-year gap and you know that they've had time off because they had a baby. Like,
Yes. So to the hiring managers, please keep it in mind that the person hasn't lost their memory. The person still has the memory. They know how to work. If they have been a lead or a senior, they have had that experience. Probably there is a gap. Yes, for 2 years, they will need probably a month or two to get back, but it doesn't mean that they should be completely moved down on the ladder. My advice is just take their interview and then decide where they fit. Don't just assume that, okay, she has taken a career break. She's going to miss out. She has missed up what happened in the last 2 years, and I don't want to hire her as a lead. Take the interview and then decide, is my advice.
Just to build on James's question there, he said hiring managers. Rather than focus on the downsides, right? I'm wondering what are the advantages that you may bring back to the workforce after having gone through this process that you could actually look for an index on as somebody, as a leader or as a hiring manager. What pros, what positives do you think you bring after having gone through that process?
So is this specifically for the maternity break or in general you're talking about?
Yeah, no, specifically
Maternity
for
break.
yeah, because we all everything we were talking about, and not just here, but you often hear people go, "Oh, I've been out of the workforce for 2 years." You hear women say this: "I've been out of the workforce. I feel like I've lost my skills. It's tough to get back in." I'm actually thinking it from the other point of view. Like, what advantages do you think you may bring having gone through that process back to the workforce?
Two things that I can think of at top of my head right now is, one is you'll find somebody who is very, very patient with the team, who can take the stress for the team because they already have been through that for the last 2 years, how much ever break they had taken.
Yeah.
And I think the second one is because they have been home, like if somebody is working, now they have been for home for 2 years, they're keen to get back.
Yeah.
They're keen, they're very proactive. They will be very proactive because they want to prove themselves.
Yeah.
So for me, I think my end, that's what happened, that I was much more pumped up and much more, oh, I have to get back and I have to do this and I have to make sure that I'm back on my career path.
Yeah.
So you will have an energetic and more passionate employee for yourself if you're giving a chance to somebody who has come back after a break. So I think those two are my.
I'll add one more. Having seen this happen, I think that women coming back from maternity break are great role models for other folks. Other folks in the team come in and say, "Hey, this is an environment where we're supportive of women coming back from maternity. Here they are. They're in management and leadership positions. They have all these properties that you mentioned. I love that. There's the patience one. I think actually a virtue that is sadly lacking in many workforces. Patient. So that's a great example. But I think that they're acting as a role model and being able to demonstrate to everyone that this is a place that supports those kind of folks coming back into the workforce and being meaningful contributors. So I think that's another thing. I'm rambling, but yeah, that's another great thing to add.
Well, I would just add one thing from a recruitment perspective is that obviously particularly females, but males as well, is to look for companies that are quite supportive of, like, offer good maternity leave, and most companies obviously compulsory to have that 1 year period where you can step away. And in your case, you took more, and I think that obviously becomes a challenge when after that 2 year period, you don't have that guarantee of going back to an employer. So if you're going to take an extended break, it's probably not so relevant because you know that you're going to have to find a new job anyway. But if you're thinking of taking some, you may need paternity leave, I would look closely, because there is a big difference sometimes in what companies offer and how supportive they are of that, because it's obviously a lot easier to just go back to your current employer after 12 months if you want to. But if you are taking an extended break, then yeah, you definitely have to think about how you're going to go about that process when the time comes, and it will probably be more challenging, whether it's fair or not.
But I think, James, the interesting thing here, which I hadn't really thought of before, which is, it shows you where your biases can get you into trouble. But the insight that I've taken out of what Swapnali just said was that it's not just the provision of maternity leave, but it's what the company does to the folks coming back from maternity leave that is also worth having a look at, right?
Yeah.
How have people come back from that, and what are they doing? What are their roles? How have they been reintegrated, and so on. So I think that there's definitely something there that's a good lesson for both hiring managers and leaders and the engineers that are taking the maternity leave break. Right? There's two parts to this process. There's the leave and there's the return.
Yeah. And companies obviously now do want to attract diversity, and obviously females are a big part of that. And I think the more that they can be inclusive and offer that really good support back, the more they're going to attract those types of people to join their organization. Now, Swapnali, just before we move on, what advice would you have to engineers, female engineers that do want to, aspiring female engineers that want to take up leadership or management roles, or think they do in future?
My advice is going to include a few things that they should do from their first day in the company. First thing is that my career, my aim was to learn different tools, because that's what I want. That's where I wanted to grow. So pick up whatever you like. It could, if you're a developer, probably it would be something else you might be interested in. If you're a product, there'll be something else you might be interested in. So pick up that something that you are passionate about. Build your knowledge, but just speaking out, especially it's difficult when you are not a native English speaker and you're trying to present your ideas to English speakers or people who are people who are using English day to day. So the only way you can do it is actually by practicing, and by practicing again and again, clearly and confidently presenting your ideas. That would be the second point, which is, built on your presentation skills. That would be the second point. And the third thing is ask for opportunities. If you're just think that somebody's going to come and give that opportunity, that's not going to happen. If you want something, go and ask. This is an unwritten rule, actually. Even I learned about it pretty late in my career, that if you are looking for a challenge for a leadership role, go and ask for it. Ask for critical projects so you can showcase skills there. Find mentors. This is another thing which I missed. It's an interesting thing here now to mention that in my 15, 16 years of career, I have had one female manager for 1 month. All the other managers I have had were males. Again, they were amazing. I have had an amazing career growth. But I still feel if I was given a female, not a manager exactly, but somebody, a mentor who I could go and talk to, because it's always been like in the room of, or in the table of 10, 12 male engineers, I'm the only female. And this has happened since the beginning of my career. And I wasn't very open about what I'm thinking. I wasn't very open about my concerns or my ideas, just because I was scared of being labeled. I was scared of being judged. So my advice to the young female aspiring leaders is go and find yourself a female mentor, which doesn't even have to be from your company. She can be from outside. just to talk about your day-to-day challenges, what is it that you're feeling and what is it that you're facing. So, and just be yourself, just you don't have to become somebody else to achieve, or you just don't have to do anything to fit in. Just be yourself and set your boundaries. This is what I can do. As females, probably we have more personal responsibility that, okay, I can't work over the weekends, for example, or I cannot start until 9 because I have my daughter to take care and I need to drop her to school, and only then I can start. These are some small examples of boundaries, but if people know about it, they can work their way around it. So, yes.
Yeah. So
I think you've got some fantastic advice there. And these are actually, they're not just for women. I think this advice is actually general advice. And so
General
the two things that you called out there, I just want to draw attention to. The first one is knowing what you are known for. You need to know what you are known for, so that's your thing. And when that thing comes up, people know that you're the person to go to for that thing. And so all of the things you mentioned, being good at presentations or being good at communication and knowing what the communication lines are in the organization about that topic, that you are known for being the person who knows about that topic. It's fundamentally important that people think about that, and they're intentional about that. And then the second one, which I think is a really interesting one, and unfortunately, in my experience, guys are better at this than women in the workforce, and it's to women's disadvantage, right? And it's this basic idea of expressing your preferences. And you alluded to it there a second ago. You said, I didn't want to be labeled, or I didn't want to, speak up. And what you have to do is, and this is a deficiency in management and leadership, not on the person, right? But in order to solve this deficiency that exists in management, you have to express your preferences. You have to be able to tell your manager and your leader cogently and coherently what it is you want. And it's sometimes people's starting position with this is like, oh, I don't want to bother them, or worse, they'll just work it out. And unfortunately, managers and leaders are always just way too busy. And the contrary is true. When you express your preference to a manager or a leader, they go, okay, I've got this now. I know the parameters around which this person wants to operate, and then it actually helps them work out how to deal with their team. And so those two things that you mentioned there, know what you are known for and express your preference, they're super important in career development.
Absolutely. Yeah. I learned it very late. I hope whoever is listening to this gets that early in her
exactly.
or his cycle.
Yeah. That's great.
I think for female leaders out there, probably know how important of an impact you can have on those younger engineers coming through as well. And if they do reach out, try do your best to help, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is another lesson that I learned way too late. Senior people are actually pretty good with giving help when it's asked. When there's sincere outreach from junior people, senior people are typically pretty good. I mean, you have to manage the time, and you have to be sincere, and you have to do the work. But if you do those things, most senior people will go, I'll give you the time. I'll help you out. They really will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the last 3-4 years, I have started reaching out to, say, my previous managers, head of engineering, where I'm like, I'm confused about this situation and I don't really know how to handle this. It's most of the times it ends up being a people specific problem, which I'm not sure how to handle, because being a female, I think that I have that disadvantage because I sometimes cannot read out what the person, if it's a male, what the person is thinking and how that it's being perceived. And it's amazing how much energy the mentors are putting in. Like for me, Naz was one of my head of engineering from previous companies, and then one day he spoke to me for 2 hours, just explaining me things from his perspective and what is it that I should be doing and what is it that is expected as a management, as a manager. And then I have in my current company, I have Simon, for example. I probably have gone to him thousands of times just with some little things. It's because he knows everybody better. He knows everybody better than I do. And it's very helpful, at times when you are confused and you need that advice that, okay, Simon, I'm confused about this. This is what I think, but I need your advice. What do you think? And he has been amazing. So, yes, as you said, people are very much willing to give that advice. It's just you need to open up and you need to ask.
Yeah, and you need to do the prep. Right. It's no use just firing off a random email. I can't do this. This isn't working. That's the kind of thing that tends to piss managers off. But if you're sincere and if you do the work, the work in advance, and you come to, hey, here's the situation that I have. Here's my diagnosis. Here's this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? Right. Then you'll get way more back from the average. The average decent manager will give you way more back than you may expect.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
We've spoken a little bit about how engineers can help themselves. You've given advice on what they can do to find a mentor. What about allies out there that can help these engineers? What advice do you have to them who may be willing to help these engineers but really don't know how or what to do?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and thank you for asking it. I'm glad that it's here. So there are these small little things that allies can do, which will help women tremendously, even though they're small. So first thing is advocating for women. If you see somebody is good for a leadership role, recommend it. Go and talk to their manager or whoever is responsible that, okay, this person is doing good. Maybe she should be, given the opportunity. If you see anybody suppressing the voice of a female colleague in the meeting room, it could happen knowingly, it could happen unknowingly. Speak up. Talk to them, talk to the individuals, talk to the female who is being affected because of this if you think she's affected. So your support there is very important. Then educate yourself on gender biases, yourself and educate others as well. Like it could be a simple example, right? Okay, she's too soft spoken, she's too kind, she's not good enough for a leadership role. We don't need to be arrogant or don't need to be rude to have that impact. We can be kind and still we can be stern. So I think this is again something people have in their mind. Oh, she's a female, she has family responsibilities. I don't think she's ready for promotion. You ask her. You don't make an assumption, right? Just maybe she's gonna say no, maybe she's gonna say yes. You don't know. But you're assuming things. So just in general, stop assuming things because she's a female. Then harassment, bullying, unacceptable everywhere, anywhere. Not just this is just not for females, it's for everybody actually. In the company, there should be strict policies against harassment and bullying. You can become a mentor. Again, guide a female colleague on how she can get better in her career advancement. Just see how can she get to the next level. Then if there are some policies which are for women, just support those policies. It could be maternity policy, it could be menopause specific policy, it could be childcare benefits. Just if you want to support a woman, just support these policies as well, which are going to make her life easy. And in general, be persistent. It's not like a one-time thing where you have done it once and it's done. It's not. It's a continuous thing that you have to do in order to support women. So yeah.
Great advice.
So no, this has been a fantastic conversation. We've done everything from testing, through to maternity leave and back again. What I like to do at the end of each of these conversations is imagine. This is actually one of my interview questions that I ask people. So I always find it quite insightful. I imagine you had a phone now, and you can make a phone call to yourself. At the start of your career when you were just starting out. What do you think? What's the advice that you'd give yourself, your younger self, if you had that opportunity? What would you say?
I think I would. I mean, there are 2-3 things I would want to say, but the top of the list I think is speak up, because you are in a room again full of the other gender colleagues. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be talking. And probably going back to my original point that don't be scared of being labeled, or just be yourself the way you are. It's okay to make mistakes. You will learn from them. You don't need to be, try. I mean, I know as a new joiner or as a grad, you're trying to make everything perfect. You're trying to impress your lead or your boss, and then you're like, okay, I need to do this properly to get this done. I personally think I could have enjoyed my work more if I was not stressed because of these pressures. Yeah, I think that would be my advice. It's just pick up and be open about what you're feeling.
Okay. Well,
Great advice.
on that note, and after quite a whirlwind tour of topics, I think that probably brings us to a close. All it leaves us to do is to say thank you very much, Swapnali, for your time. James, I'm speaking for James, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we touched on some great stuff there. Perhaps there's even another episode in there somewhere where we can go a bit deeper in series 2. Get some people back to have another chat on some of these topics. Thank you, Swapnali.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for coming on. We'll put some notes in the show notes, maybe some links. There's a lot of stuff that we covered there that I'm sure some people will be curious about finding out more about, including your background and history. But yeah, thanks very much, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.
Very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Big thanks to Swapnali for sharing her wisdom on software quality.
If you enjoyed this, hit follow and pass it on to someone who cares about building great software.
And remember, quality isn't just about testing. It's about how you build right from day one.